Alright, so today I want to make a video about this whole Muslim voter guide thing that was basically, in a nutshell, funded by the government obviously using taxpayer dollars to basically come out with a quote-unquote voter guide that basically tells Muslims that they should be voting for Jagmeet Singh, or to a lesser extent Justin Trudeau. But basically this is kind of, I mean, it's an issue on many reasons. Number one, the left has this fascination. I mean, they have to do it to get elected, but they have this fascination with pandering to quote unquote marginalized, or whatever you want to call it, groups. And like I said, the reason they do this is they need the the black vote in Canada. It's not really, it's more in the U.S., but they need to get the minority and the marginalized groups. They need to get an overwhelming percentage of those people's votes to get elected, because they can't convince, they can't convince the whites but to vote for them. And then their main reason for that is that they know that they're less likely to vote for them in the first place. So they got to do stuff like this. And like I said, the big issue with something like this is that, number one, it's not really kind of. I mean, it's election meddling. You're basically telling people who they should vote for, and if they want to, I mean, even if they want to argue with that this stuff is factual, which from their perspective it kind of is, but even if they want to argue that it's factual, well, why didn't they fund a Christian voting guide, or a white people voting guide, or a native voting guide, or any group that you can think of guide? Why just a Muslim one? And the reason for that, I think, is pretty clear. Is that, I mean, the majority of Muslims are going to vote. I mean, the majority of everyone, but using this example, they're going to vote who they're going to vote for pretty much no matter what you do. Like Justin Trudeau, I mean, the whole blackface thing with Justin Trudeau, if that was Andrew Scheer, that would have ruined his political career. If it was Trump, he'd more than likely get impeached for that. I mean, they're trying to impeach him over stuff that is complete BS. Imagine if they had something like that to go after him for. So the overwhelming majority of Trudeau supporters still supported him after something that, if you would have asked those same supporters that if Andrew Scheer did it, do you think he should have to resign? And the overwhelming majority, probably 95+% of them, would say yes, he should resign. But when their guy does it, it's completely fine. So the one thing that I would point out is that putting out something like this, I don't think it'd change very many people's minds. Like, I would say it's maybe single digits. I mean, like, how many Muslim libertarians do you know? Like, there's definitely some, but of all the people that aren't voting for, of all the Muslims that aren't voting for a leftist party in Canada, the overwhelming majority of them probably aren't voting. Like, what percent of Muslims, of practicing Muslims, do you think vote Conservative or People's Party, or not gonna vote like that, or vote Conservative or People's Party? Again, a lot of them probably don't vote, but I mean, that's such a small percentage. It's absolutely insane, and those are the only people that you're gonna convince to change their minds over something like this. So number one, it's a waste of money. Number two, if you don't think that it's a waste of money, then it's election meddling. So that's kind of the big issue with that. As far as the whole quote things that they have here, it's just all over the top, like BS, like stuff like. So that they have the key issues heading here, and the first one is alt-right groups and Islamophobia. First of all, Islamophobia isn't the thing. I mean, if you're irrationally afraid, I mean, the same people on the left are afraid of Andrew Scheer saying he's a Christian, and him never saying that he wants to go after gay marriage or abortion rights, but yet they constantly go after him, saying that he wants to do those things. So are those people, Christian phobic? Like, no conservative has ever said that in history. But yet, when someone points out that, in Islam, women are treated as second-class citizens, they're an expansionist ideology, just to name a couple things. I mean, they don't believe in democracy, all that kind of stuff. Like, if an alt-right group had, let's say you're an alt-right group, and you had, you wanted to treat women as second-class citizens. You didn't believe in democracy. You're an expansionist ideology. I mean, just to name a few things. The left would literally consider you the second coming of the Third Reich or the Fourth Reich, whatever you want to call it. But when Islam does it, it's completely fine, and that's for the main reason that Muslims tend to vote left. So there's nothing that they can do that the left would criticize them over. And this is pretty apparent. 2 days ago, I believe it was announced that the leader of of ISIS was killed, and you have some people on the left condemning him, but a lot of people on the left doing about the least amount you can possibly condemn someone while still having it pass off as being condemned, basically, is what I would say. So that's kind of the whole left thing with that. Again, Andrew Scheer and Maxime Bernier are the only people that failed that one. M103, which again is the same thing. Andrew Scheer and Maxime Bernier are the only ones that failed that. I don't even know what Andrew Scheer's position on that is. I know Maxime Bernier is against it. M103 is basically an anti-free speech bill. If you're for M103, you're against free speech, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. So I'll just leave that there. Religious freedom and dress in Quebec, no one passed that one, actually, and they believe needs improvement, F is fail, so if no one's good enough on that one, might as well just ignore it. Immigration and refugees, again, Scheer and Bernier both failed that one, everyone else passed it. And the other thing about that one too is that Andrew Scheer we've never had him quoted on a number of immigrants and refugees that he wants to bring in, and the only coherent quotes that we've had is that he doesn't want to reduce it. So in essence, Andrew Scheer doesn't disagree with Justin Trudeau on this, but yet they give him a fail and they give Justin Trudeau a pass. So number one, this is completely, it's so biased, this stuff, it's absolutely insane. But and that's the other big problem with the Scheer conservative movement and idea, is that they did whatever they possibly could. They pandered to the middle and to the left as much, like they came as far to the left as a conservative ever has, and yet they still lost by a decent amount. So for anyone out there, if you're a conservative, please just be a conservative. They're gonna look at this with Andrew Scheer. They're gonna call you a racist. They're gonna call you anti-immigrant. They're gonna call you Islamophobic, no matter what you do. I mean, Andrew Scheer basically said he agrees with Justin Trudeau without actually saying it, and yet they still don't give it to him. So as long as you're a conservative, they're gonna call you all these names and stuff anyways. You might as well be principled and actually be a principled conservative, basically. Boycott, divestment, sanctions movement, no one passed that one. Foreign policy, only Jagmeet Singh and Elizabeth May passed that one, and I think that may be a little bit more accurate. The other problem with that one too is that I don't understand how Maxime Bernier didn't pass that one. Like, he's one of the least interventionalist. He probably is the least interventionalist politician that was run, at least of the major parties that were running, yet he still failed it. So this is something that if you would have given me the headings, I could have predicted where they would have put all these without even getting their opinion on it, because it's going to be completely biased to the left. They're going to fail Maxime Bernier and Andrew Scheer no matter what they say. So, that's the one thing and basically to sum it up, Jagmeet Singh was the best in their minds, and then Justin Trudeau and Elizabeth May. Next best is Elizabeth May, slightly better, but the Greens are never going to win. And then Maxime Bernier got fails across the board. That's definitely a good job on him. And Andrew Scheer got all fails. He got one needs improvement. So the other thing too that I don't really understand is that I may be corrected on this. I'm not 100% sure, but Jagmeet Singh is a Sikh, I believe, and this is the Muslim voting guide. And from what I've heard, again, like I said, I may be wrong on this, but Muslims and Sikhs don't really get along very well. So I'm not sure why they gave Jagmeet Singh the best grade or whatever score, whatever you want to call it in this, considering that Sikhs and Muslims, from what I've heard, don't get along very well. And so I'm not really sure where they get that one, but that's kind of where they got it. So basically, to sum it up, number one, I think it was a big waste of money. I don't think you've changed people's minds over things like this. I think a lot of people are going to say that it's a completely biased piece of information, which I mean it is, but my position on this kind of stuff is that this voting is basically an ethnic head count. If you have overwhelmingly whites, you're going to get a conservative government. If you have overwhelmingly people from the third world, whether it's Muslims, I mean, blacks aren't technically from the third world, but originally they're from Africa, which is, you know, mostly third world countries now. Hispanics, all this kind of stuff, they're overwhelmingly leftist voters. I mean, go look at you can look at video. I know Stefan Molyneux's made videos on this, people like that, but if you support, if you're on the left, it's very simple with this kind of stuff. People confuse it, and I don't get it. It's very simple that if you're on the right, you want less. If you're on the right, you want less immigration, because less immigration means that your side is more likely to win. If you're on the left, you want more immigration, because immigrants from the third world support leftist parties. And I mean, you look at this Muslim voter guide, and basically I mean, anyone with half a brain could have told you before they even published it, but they're on the left and they want more leftist policies. So that's basically the easy thing. So I don't want to go on too much more about this, but this is a piece of info that I think is pretty crazy that they put something like this out there. Like, I don't really get it. I'm not sure why. Number one, it's clearly election meddling. I mean, imagine if the Harper government last time put out a Christian voting guide, and obviously it's going to come out that he's probably the best, especially compared to Justin Trudeau, and the left would have been all over that. So or if you're in the US and the NRA put out a gun owners guide, and obviously it's going to say that you should have voted for Trump, and you know, the left would have been all over that. It would have been election meddling, all this kind of stuff. So I mean the other takeaway is that the left, I mean, I've said it before, and it needs to be said over and over until everyone gets it, but the left believes in rules for thee but not for me. They believe in it boggles my mind that they argue against a two-tiered healthcare system, but yet they'll continuously argue for and defend to the nth degree a two-tiered legal system, a two-tiered every other system you can pretty much possibly think of as being completely good, but yet they'll argue against the healthcare. I mean, that's a completely different video that I don't really want to get into, but basically that's about all. So if you liked the video, make sure to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more.